I heard for the first time about remembering when I was more or less 20 years old. It was the self-remembering of the fourth way, which was presented as a way for the complete development of the human being, and it was brought in the West by an Armenian mystic called Gurdjieff, and that happened more or less 100 years ago. The impression I got from this teaching was so strong and shocking that I immediately started practicing it every day with a great deal of effort and attention. Anyway, after a few years, I had to admit that instead of feeling more complete, I was just more stressed and mentally fatigued. Indeed, my first reaction was that this teaching was useless and wrong. I was that arrogant. Only after years, when I came in personal contact with Yoginâm and his formulation called Nam, only then I started to understand how much I was diverting. In this video, I won't make comparison between different teachings and traditions. As I mentioned in my last video, this approach doesn't lead anywhere. What I want to do is sharing with you the main discoveries towards a more meaningful life and profound well-being.
Know thyself, and thou shalt know the universe and the gods.
First of all, from the immature point of view of a 20 years old or so, the word self-remembering added a big load of self-importance. The same self-importance that I would later discover to be the main cause of all ignorance and misery. Indeed, the genuine intent of the fourth way was referring to the know thyself, the Greek motto of the Delphi oracle, and the self was not used as the psychological identity, the I, but as what transcends it. Anyway, what was happening in my case was that the self-remembering, as I understood it from the books, was strengthening my idea of self. I was thinking that everything could be achieved by myself, by just a stretch of will, with just the strength of my consciousness, without taking in considerations all the more important, deeper parts of this being. I didn't know that the willpower of our I-thinking consciousness operates at a very superficial level that has no way of changing us deeply. So no permanent well-being can be achieved at this shallow level. The keys for real change are placed in the deeper unconscious level of being. And what operates at this level is called intent in the language of Nam. By the way, only after years I realized that this requires some guidance. One can't do it alone. Even Gurdjieff said that many times, but indeed, as a youngster, you think you are better than others, that you are special and that you can do everything by yourself.
No one can escape from prison without the help of those who have escaped before. Only they can say in what way escape is possible, or can send tools, files, or whatever may be necessary.
Thanks to this experience, it became clear that if I constantly remember the idea I have of myself, the result is a disaster. The result is a more egoistic human being, totally mind-focused and disconnected from life. Basically, a soulless robot. On the other hand, when you have a guide that is like a mirror, then you can finally see what you are really doing with your life. Here I discovered that most of the ideas I had were just ideas. And no matter how refined they were, in the end, these ideas were not able to conduct myself to real well-being. Only this realization then opened the possibilities to truly investigate what worked and what didn't. Without guidance, you run in circles without even realizing it. But with someone who has already walked that path, the cycle can be broken And if you are fully receptive, you begin to see beyond it and act accordingly.
The Buddha said people are deluded. This is why when they act, they fall into the river of endless rebirth. And trying to get out, they only sink deeper, and all because they don't see their nature.
Observing other fourth way groups and students, I've noticed that most of them were approaching this teaching the same way I had, with a do it yourself mentality, and then landing in the same place. So, not liberation from the limiting identity built on opinions, ideas, convictions, but a stronger identification with this refined, esoteric, subtle knowledge, which equals to pride. And Gurdjieff many times said that the main enemies on the way are pride and self-importance. And that the real first step is the realization of our nothingness in front of reality.
Mr. Self-Love and Madame Vanity are the two chief agents of the devil. Before seeking the way, we must realize our own nothingness.
Curiously, almost everyone skips this part, attracted by whatever thing seems shinier and more exciting. And that's a significant mistake. Or, yeah, just it's maybe best to say it's a real pity. By observing this in myself, I discovered, as in spirituality, as in everything else, most of people are looking for confirmation on what they already know. So they keep running in circles and no freedom is possible. While what is really needed is to go beyond the known, beyond whatever knowledge one may have accumulated. The knowledge may be the most precise, highest and divine possible, but if there is no awareness behind it, not the personal awareness, but that mysterious magic dust, we could say, then without that, all of this is completely useless. All knowledge, it's just, yeah, it doesn't make any sense, has no meaning. To just open a book of wisdom and think you can grasp and practice immediately this or that, based on what you like, is just nonsense. A single sentence from a Buddha or a Christ could require an entire lifetime of selflessness to be understood. So to simply read anything and thinking that you can apply it as the author intended is realistically pure imagination. When we open a book and read something, most certainly we will read what we want to read and not what the author wanted to convey. So one should be guided to learn how to learn. For that reason, to have a personal contact with a living guide is key and a point that is really overlooked, especially in the West.
If all would have opened themselves for guidance, they would have been guided. This is the promise of cause and consequence.
So to me, this did a world of a difference. When I stopped seeking the highest wisdom or the thing that I thought could solve all of my problems, and then I started to focus on what life was suggesting me to involve myself with, only then I discovered that this was the only way to a real change. And that's the good news. We can change. If we set a different cause, there will be a different consequence, exactly as Yoginâm writes.
Indeed, this is the message of Nam. Because you are the consequence of the cause that you are, you can alter the cause in order to change the consequence.
Another point of diversion was that I was approaching remembering with the same identification and attitude with which I was living ordinary life. I do this and then I get that. Cause and effect. While this may be helpful in ordinary life, this is definitely not the way to approach something delicate, intimate, and precious like the one thing, the essence. We don't go to declare our love screaming and using big words, right? The best way is always to demonstrate it in silence with actions. It shows itself. So in my first years, I narrowed down to a thought what I wanted to remember and stress it continuously. And we all experience it that when we want to remember something many times a day, it quickly loses its power, whatever is the thing we are remembering. Like a beautiful song that gradually loses its magic the more we listen to it. So remembering to be effective is never the remembering of a something. Yoginâm is very, very clear about that.
Nam remembering is not a remembering of a something. It rather is a remembering of what is, in its aspect of all-embracing. Such a remembering is like a coloured glass with which witnessing assumes a different hue. Remembering a something like a belief, an ideal, a form or an opinion is strengthening attachment. In the openness and expectation, the unconscious transcendental nature will gradually saturate I world and will bring it to fulfillment.
Because of these diversions, it was obvious that something was not working out. For me, it became clear that the more I was practicing my stuff, trying to make sense of all of my complex knowledge, the more I was feeling broken inside. All was just meaningless. And one day I had to admit that to be disconnected from life was not what I wanted, and that there are no trophies for being in suffering all the time. If the result of our efforts is such that we dissipate all our light and we are not able to be a more loving person, capable of being in service of whatever is happening, then what is the point? What is the point of living then? Living with the feeling that life is a waste was unbearable. I couldn't continue with it anymore. Because of this lack of meaning, I suffered severe panic attacks, depression, and all the related loss of vitality. It was like if my body, first of all, was stopping to work, like if something behind it was saying, if you don't listen and change, it's game over.
Life is simple as soon as I have discovered its way. Concentrating on complexity and elaborating in obscure philosophies and thoughts will clog me, and my resonance will be one of confusion.
So, thanks to all of this mess, I finally become open to other influences and ways of thinking and creating in life. After some time, you are even able to recognize the mess as a blessing. So, no matter how difficult it was, when you link your difficult past experiences to a beneficial meaning, then gratitude is generated and no traumas are left. This is very well explained in the book Sea Web by Yoginâm, where you can really understand how we create experience. Since I was very much interested in other ways, especially the fourth way, as I said, and also the Taoist alchemical tradition, when I first met Yoginâm and Nam, I wasn't impressed, because I couldn't find any connection with my ideas. I had knowledge about coating the subtle bodies, about immortality, about all kind of technicalities extracted and then connected from all these different traditions. Yet I was broken deeply. I knew nothing. Anyway, I stayed interested in Yoginam because of his special silent charisma. There was something different when I was reading his books, listening to his words, or attending his heart mood sessions. They had a kind of releasing effect. It was like if buried deep in myself there was a recognition that there was something there. But it took some more years before I could say one day with certainty, I am done with my stuff, with the do-it-yourself, and then I will now focus on what life is continuously suggesting to me. After that, the entire experience in and around me started to shift. You know, when you feel better, you behave better with the people around you, right? You are a better son, you are a better friend, a better professional, a better boyfriend. But it's in the end beyond your identity. You become a more optimal expression of living, whatever is the shape it takes. It's not about who you are. This is not just personal. It's not anymore about you. So it's really like life is expressing itself in ways that we don't control. But at the same time, this was really starting to give me the impression that Yoginam was right when he was saying life wants to live optimally. Living was increasingly improving until it became so obvious. And nowadays what I can do is just to tell this story, but not to convince people of the superiority of Nam to other traditions. This is false twice, because Nam, first of all, is not a tradition, so you cannot convert to Nam. You can't be a follower. There is nothing in which you can believe in. For instance, I'm a very rational man. I am the tech guy, so I've worked in IT for many years, and now I'm working as a web developer and web designer. And yet, Nam, as it is formulated by Yoginam, makes complete sense. And most importantly, it really works. Secondly, everyone is different and life knows it better. So you may be involved in other traditions or endeavors, you may be spiritual or atheist, you may never hear about Nam in your life. But if you are living in attunement and are sincerely connected to life, you respect it, it means you are already applying its principles, because they are simply universal, and then you are on your way towards optimal living. As I see it, Nam is a profoundly beneficial way of looking at life that can improve whatever condition you are at. Indeed, for a better definition, you want to read Yoginam's books and his other contents, because what I say is always colored by my personal interpretation, so please don't stop at my words. Go on and discover yourself. Who knows the ways in which it can touches you. So you find the links in the description below. Since remembering is not about fixing something in mind, but allowing space for life to flow through, it may even be called mindfulness, but not as the ordinary mindfulness that aims to develop our personal identification. There is no I am here in the present moment, I am the center of everything, I am this or that. From the perspective of totality, this I definition is a closure. So the mindfulness of Nam has no limits. It just affirms what is without definitions. In this transcendental mindfulness of no self, we just keep an attitude of openness that allows a kind of subtle beneficial guidance. In this openness, you can recognize like a kind of intelligence or interconnectedness around everything that happens. This is very, very real. You get the impression that there are unknowable forces that are beyond what we can see with our eyes. Yet, no speculation should follow, since people have this natural tendency or even need to explain everything and make stories, and then spoiling the purity of experience in itself. When the mysterious is translated in words, this is always incomplete and personal. So it is not the experience itself. It is never objective. It is never the same for everyone. A beautiful piece of music, for example, or the description of a color is not it. There are deeper layers in us, deeper than the conscious level of the superficial thinking eye, and it is with these subtle layers that the real remembering or mindfulness happens. It is like having a chant that stays with you throughout the day, whatever you are doing. You are not constantly thinking to the chant for it to emanate. It just is. When these subtler levels or layers are set to embrace whatever happens, not by a rational choice, but from a fundamental intent, then the magic happens. Intent is rooted in our essence. That means it cannot be denied. It is you, your core. For that reason is powerful, and so what we truly are indeed is undeniable, but only when we don't define it, of course. Nam has been formulated in a way that allows you to advance on the journey without making your burden heavier and heavier. The same cannot be said of the majority of the teachings or approaches that you find today in the so-called spiritual marketplace, because they add so much knowledge and practices and superficial things that you quickly lose the essence, what is really important. So one of the effects of the mindfulness of Nam is that we don't need anymore much of this or that in order to feel at home in this life. Much of the things that were perceived as essential are now not anymore needed. And day after day, we become lighter. We become more ready for the last moment of living, which is indeed the most important one. All the wise people I met and studied consider this living, this stretch between birth and death, as a preparation for that final moment. Indeed, even to say it is a final moment is again a closure. Who knows? But indeed, the way we live our life second by second determines what happens in that important final, who knows, moment. Because of that, the instruments for the mindfulness of Nam have to be really simple. For that reason they work. Of these tools, the one I believe is the most effective is the Nam breath. The breath is the ultimate transformative tool. Let's see what Yoginâm writes about it.
Everything that is concocted in ignorance is obstructing remembering. For this reason, the Nam remembering can only become true remembering when it is carried by the breath, which is the ultimate instrument of Nam attention.
By my experience, the great thing of the breath is that it just always works. Without knowing how, it just works. You can do it when you are seated down or when moving. Whatever is your mood, it always has a beneficial, enriching effect. It is such an important tool that it deserves its own video, and I think that it will be probably, the next one. If you are interested, subscribe to my newsletter to get a notification when a new video is out. You find the links down in the description. Alright, that's it for today. Take care.